Open your ears and lube up your butthole. It's time for the What Do We Call It podcast. Now, here's your host. It's Jmann. Welcome to the What Do We Call It podcast. I'm Jmann, and joining me today
is Steiny again.
Other Neil is back. It's been a while.
It has been some time.
Because the last time, I think, was when we were bitching about baby mamas.
X's and O's, I believe, is the name of that one.
That's a long fucking time ago.
I thought we also did one where we were talking about previous jobs.
That was on Blumpkin and Friends.
Ah.
Yeah, different
Other
show.
Yeah, well, plug for that one, right?
Right. Listen to Blumpkin and Friends, you motherfuckers. Oh. Because you're not listening to this. I applied for a new job a few weeks back.
Okay.
That I was immediately disqualified from. I applied to be an addiction recovery support specialist.
Ah. And what was the reason for the denial?
I've never done drugs.
You'd think that would be a positive thing on an application.
Yeah, no. She said that you don't have the kind of experience we're looking for because this is like a sponsor, someone who said, oh, when I lived through that type of thing, this is what I did, or when I had cravings, this is what I did. And I thought to myself, how fucking retarded is that?
Right. It's kind of like a suicide counselor needing to have had to try to commit suicide before.
Wow. You're not doing it right. You gotta make sure the gun's loaded, and you gotta point at more of an upward angle. This is why you don't have a left cheek anymore. Dumbass. So basically what it equated to, once I read her email disqualifying me, was I'm being punished for being sober.
Right.
In a roundabout way. They're discriminating against me for not having done hard drugs.
Can you go to anybody, like an unfair hiring practices place, and claim discrimination that you're not a junkie?
God, that'd be hilarious. It was through the state. It was a job with the state. So maybe I should call like the state attorney general's office. Be like, yeah, by the way, fuck you guys. So I have been around drugs all throughout my teen years and 20s. I haven't really seen anybody do any hard drugs in front of me in my 30s. I mean, people have taken a toke here, a toke there. Mm-hmm. But in my 20s, I had friends that were always smoking up. I had friends that were snorting coke in front of me.
Oh, yeah.
I never caved to peer pressure. They knew that I was not going to join in, and nobody ever gave me a hassle for it. It's not like they had trouble relating to me. Nobody said, oh, get him out of here. He's going to school to be a cop, and he's not doing coke with us. Get the fuck out.
Right. Yeah, I don't remember that ever being a topic. I remember you bitching at other people at parties for various things that they did, but not too often.
Well, let's reference that, because that's a funny story. This was at your old house when you were together with your son's mom and her friend, who I had a wicked crush on because she was a sexy Latina.
Oh, she was.
I wanted to motorboat the shit out of her.
Mm-hmm.
So she pulls out her weed and starts rolling a joint right there on the table.
Yeah, right in the middle of the party. Right
on your kitchen table, not far from where your son would eat his morning cereal.
Very true, very true. Yeah, I was a little surprised at that brazenness, I guess.
So I asked her about it, and I kind of was just razzing her some, and she got kind of sassy. And she's like, what? I don't care if people see me rolling a joint. I get high. I don't give a fuck. And I said to her, do you want to come over for dinner at my parents' house and meet them?
And I think that one went right over her head, didn't it? Yeah. She's probably high at the time. And
she didn't get that I was saying she was quite a catch for rolling a J right in the middle of a party.
I did think it was interesting, though. That was your kind of lead into like, hey, you want to hang out sometime, since you had a thing for her, It was like, well, you could have maybe done that a little differently than kind of attack her drug habit.
Well, I was being tongue-in-cheek there. It wasn't like, hey, we should get together sometime. Because I tried that through your ex, and she just told her friend, he thinks you're hot.
Right, like we're back in grade school.
Way to go.
Yep.
And her response, the girl's response was, okay, well, I don't know him, so what?
Right, what are you getting
Thank you, other Neil's ex, for fucking my chances there. So before she full-on disqualified me from this job, I'm backtracking a little, I emailed and said, I read what the qualifications are. It talks about you need to have a year's sobriety. Check. I've got 8.
Yeah, you're overqualified.
I've got almost a decade. And a clear driving record. Check. Mm-hmm. The ability to drive around. Check. And no felonies. Check. And I explained where I work. I also explained that I've been around people doing drugs all my life and I've never succumbed to peer pressure. I talked about
The Beast.
Ah.
yeah, and how she was an alcoholic, and she would always smoke up and then drive, and we argued about that. So I've experienced dealing with difficult people who are addicted to substances but don't want to admit it. So that, plus my 10 years working in the jail with all the inmates, who many of them are substance abusers.
Right. That's part of the reason why they got there.
Right, and then just to throw a little bit of sprinkles on that cupcake, I was like, plus my godparents are 30-some-year AA vets.
Oh.
So I have drug users, drug abusers, people that have tried to get clean. I have AA people. I've done everything but get high. And somehow I don't qualify for that.
You don't meet the skills that they're looking for, apparently.
That's like telling somebody that you can't work for the Boys and Girls Club at an inner city satellite office because you're too white and you grew up in the burbs.
Right.
You haven't lived the struggle of the young black youth. You can't volunteer at the YMCA in the 4th precinct because you're white.
Yeah, because being poor or struggling is only exclusive to certain races. Isn't that inherently racist?
Well,
in and of
no,
itself?
because there's poor pieces of shit of every
That's what I'm getting
skin
at.
color.
That's what I'm getting at. But for them to claim that you can't work there because you didn't struggle like they did, it's like,
Right.
what? Similar.
It's idiotic is what it is. So, yeah, then she sent me back the reply that said, you know, I get your experience. It sounds like you have a good base of knowledge, but I don't think you qualify for this position. We have this other one that's a part-time thing on weekends, just being around and hanging out at the facility. No, I want a full-time job, dumbass.
Definitely.
I was like, hey, I can get a job where I can actually work with the same clientele, so I'll be comfortable right away. And instead of having to fucking be this authority figure, which I'm not like a huge asshole, I can be a helper. Because I have told the inmates so much about my being sober. And things you learn when you work in a jail. Haven't used that in a while. They ask me if I've ever done drugs or I ever do that. I mention I've never done drugs. They're like, for real? Like, they don't believe me. They just can't process.
Especially growing up in this area.
And when I tell them that I don't drink, they're like, at all? No, I haven't for years. Not since March 7th, 2009, when we all met up at Majors and Blaine to watch the Rampage Jackson UFC fight.
I remember that, actually.
That was the last night I drank. I was just sitting around watching people be shit-faced, and Rick James got a little too slosh.
Yeah,
And
that's
then
right.
other
He got
people,
pretty hammered that night. Yeah.
Other people are just getting pissy because they've drank too much. And I'm like, this is not my scene. This isn't me. I'm not even enjoying this. I'm doing this to be social because it's shitty to go into a bar and say, yeah, I just like a water.
Yeah.
Because believe it or not, when I'd go to Blainebrook and I'd sober cab for Dickface, they would hassle me sometimes.
Really?
One of the bartenders like, you're not just going to sit here and drink water all night. Like, I'm the sober cab.
I was going to say, that's supposed to be the respectable entity, right? We're supposed to kind of elevate those people who are the sober cabs. So why would you give them a hard time if they're sticking around so their friends can make it home safe?
Because I wasn't giving her any money. She wasn't making money off of me. I wasn't there to eat dinner. I was just sitting
knowing
at
you weren't
the bar next to Dickface.
And knowing you weren't going to tip her for those waters at the end of the night.
I thought about it. Like, here's $3 to stop giving me attitude. I would
Right.
like your big boobies on my face. I like big
Maybe
boobies.
that should have been the route you took.
Like, look, I don't want to insult you, but here's some money to not be a bitch, and we should hang out sometime. I'd like to lick your areolas. And then wear them like a couple of eye patches.
See, nothing wrong with that.
No. And you can admit as much or as little as you want right now.
Okay.
But you're one of the people I know that growing up, you've at least tried drugs. You've smoked weed.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so how would you feel if you went into a treatment program and then they assigned you somebody to be your support specialist and they're like, I've never done drugs? Would it immediately turn you off?
You know, I don't think so, because at this point in time in my life, maybe if I was younger, maybe if I was a teenager perhaps, I would be like, well, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. He can't relate to me. Maybe. And I give that a marginal maybe. But then again, as an adult, you realize that people come from all different walks of life, have all sorts of different experiences. And like you say, a lot of your experiences are around people who have been users and abusers and have had problems. And so you've seen it, you've dealt with it enough to where I wouldn't have any problem with it now if I entered a program.
Because that's the thing, is my experience isn't personal, it's anecdotal.
Right.
I've lived around it, and I've lived through other people's experiences. And, where I work, we have a treatment program. So there are people that are trying to get clean, mostly because the courts are making them.
Yes, it's court-ordered.
And we've had some people get out and then almost immediately overdose and die.
Oh.
It's all that fucking heroin that's out there. But to go to the source of somebody who has had to seek out addiction recovery services, I called my aunt, who's my godmother.
Okay.
My only maternal aunt, my mom's sister. I'm like, here's the deal. I explained, I'm like, isn't this fucking bullshit? Because I've never done drugs, I can't have a job. And she's like, well, I can kind of see what they're saying, because when I was going through it and I was looking for a sponsor, I pretty much went for people that had the most experience going down the wrong path, because I knew they'd have this dearth of advice to all the different angles they work to try to get clean, to try to get better. And it's fine. It's affable that they've done that, and that you would want somebody who could say, I've walked in those shoes.
Mm-hmm.
I guess if I was to throw myself on the other side of the argument, well, you don't go and learn how to drive a school bus from somebody who's only ridden in them.
That's an interesting analogy. Okay.
My dad's a plumber. Well, if I was my dad, I wouldn't hire me because I watched him do plumbing.
Right.
You would want an apprentice.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But it's a little bit different, because getting clean isn't like an acquired skill or a trade. And
it's not something it's a process. See, I have something for you here. Years ago, I got in some trouble with drinking and driving. Mm-hmm. My first DUI. I've only had a second one, but we won't talk about that. That was years later. And so I didn't have any extra penalties. But the first time, what they did is they ordered me to a program in the Lionel Lakes Medium Correctional Facility. This was back when they used to do a 2-day program. You basically
the 2-day overnight DWI program.
Yep, you'd stay there for 2 days, 2 nights, and they'd let you out on a Sunday. Or in my case, I went in on a Friday morning. I came out Sunday morning. And they had 2 speakers during the day. I really wish I remember his name, but it was a guy and a gal, both older. The guy... He was a recovering alcoholic, recovering drug abuser. He had lived homeless for various times in his life because he was so addicted to drugs and such an alcoholic that he basically destroyed his entire life. Oh. Right? And so he had a lot of great stories, and there was some very interesting stuff. And you could think, wow, I'm glad that wasn't me, or
shock
I never had
value.
that problem.
He's shocking your system into seeing things through a different light to try to coerce you into considering changing your ways.
Exactly. But the gal that was there in the evening was an older gal who would drink. She could drink recreationally. She'd never been in treatment, never had any problems. But she had a lot of good information, too, because of the very similar situation as you. She was around people that had had issues. She had had relatives that had had problems. And so that didn't stop her from being an effective speaker during that 2-day program. I think I got just as much out of her as I did out of him. Now, granted, some of his stories were a little bit more funny and more memorable, but that didn't help me get over my addiction or my problems so much as seeing, geez, this is the route where I could have gone, or this is the worst case scenario. So maybe in some ways, he was a little bit more effective because of that. Now,
that's almost a fallacy, though, that they send people with a single first-time DWI to the 2-day program, and then they get this fucking old sot talking about all the times he got sloppy and ruined his life. Because it's not like you have a problem. You got caught, and that became a problem. But having an addiction problem is not the same as having a getting in trouble problem. True. Addiction can lead to more trouble, but if you're just a few incidents here and there, and in your case, it was one.
Yes.
You got caught being a little too over the limit. It weren't like you were 3 times the limit and driving into a light pole.
Or had hurt somebody or caused problems. You realize the effects that you could have had, and the repercussions, things that could have gone wrong because of your drinking and driving. But you're right. I did not get in a whole lot of trouble. And I think even at that point in time, I didn't have any jail time. I had a $300 fine that I only had to pay $100 of. I mean, it was basically a slap on the wrist for my first time because there wasn't all these aggravating factors. It was just, oops.
You also got off easy because it was, how long ago? How many years ago was that?
That would have been 2001.
Okay, so 14 years before the ignition interlock phenomenon hit.
Right, yes.
And if you don't know what that means is if you get a drunk driving offense, the state has to let you drive.
I know,
if you hear the fucking commercials. And the ignition interlock is something they install in your car. It's a straw you blow into, and your car won't start unless you can blow zeros. And I guess there's a camera on it too, I think.
I think they've upped their game on that, because it used to be a thing where anybody could blow into it. So you could have your kid or your spouse blow into it, and then you could drive, even if you were 3 sheets to the wind. So yeah, I think they do put a camera on that to verify your identity now.
And then you got to pay all this money for it, and then you got to get it recalibrated every 30 days. And then if you don't get it calibrated, it locks you out. You got to get your fucking car towed to a station to get it worked on. And it's a giant cash scam. They say it helps, but here's the thing. The ignition interlock was developed by a lawyer.
Yep.
Who then sold the exclusivity rights to the state to use it. And he's making money hand over fist 10 times over. Like filthy fucking rich. And I'm not saying it's bad that he did that, but it's kind of a conflict of interest if somebody who is in the business of being on either side of a DWI case designs a new legal requirement to get your license back.
Right.
Yeah. Maybe it's like having somebody with a scientist with AIDS go in the lab and try to create new antiviral drugs. But that would be to the nation over. Right. I doubt he'd sell it to one pharmaceutical company. So that's what we have in Minnesota is ignition interlock.
But I will admit, if they would have had something like that for me, I would have definitely taken that, even with all the added penalties, all the added costs, and all the added hassle of doing that ignition interlock. If that was the difference between me having my license suspended for a year or 6 months and not being able to drive versus being able to drive and get to work and at least do the things I needed to do, I think I would pay it. You know what I mean? As the alternative, I think that's why it's such a popular solution for many people.
Oh, yeah. Back to treatment programs and recovery groups, there's one thing a lot of them have in common. Can you guess what that might be?
Well, I don't know if this is the route you're going, but I know the one thing that surprised me about AA when I had a friend who went into it, and I'm not a very religious person, so I was surprised at the amount of level of dependence on God that goes into these programs to admit that you don't have power and that...
Ding!
Yep, okay.
I'm going the Jesus route.
Yes.
They're very Jesus heavy. And I don't know if I've said this on the show before. I probably have. But people think AA is very culty.
Yeah.
If you devote your life to AA, suddenly you're only hanging with your AA friends, going to meetings. But that makes sense.
Right.
Having my godparents be in AA and then their daughter, my cousin also... You stick around people that you can relate to.
Well, and build healthy habits with, too, as well. I mean, you don't want to go back hanging out with your drinking buddies if you have a drinking problem. You'd rather stick around people who are not promoting drinking to you.
And I don't think people really take the time to acknowledge that fact. Because they're like, oh, you're going to AA, I'll fucking never see you again because you'll be with your culty AA friends and all the time. My mom's a big proponent of saying AA is a cult.
Interesting.
Which is funny because my mom does not have a problem at all.
Right.
My mom's the opposite side of the coin as my aunt. Okay. So it's like, Ma, you realize that if she sticks around with the shitty boozers, she's probably going to be tempted to drink again.
Right.
And that's why I have to stay out of the cookie aisle at Target. Because my sugar addiction makes me want to eat an entire fucking package of EL fudge on the drive home, which takes 4.5 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, I'll at least spread that out through the entire night, but I'll do the same thing. I'll eat the whole damn thing. That's why I can't have snacks in my house.
Where I'm going with this is you trade one crutch, addiction, for another crutch.
Right.
God. So now you've got somebody, if they would have given me that job, I don't like that they make you rely on, like, give your life to God. Realize you have no control. You fucking very much have control. It's a matter of figuring out cause and effect relationships and having some goddamn willpower.
Right. And maybe even finding alternative addictions that are healthy. You know what I mean?
Sex.
We talk about hobbies. We talk about other things to distract you in life. And that's what a lot of times addiction is. You just need to find something else to focus your efforts towards.
Like video games.
Yeah, I got a video game addiction.
So I'm the best of both worlds there because I'm sober. I've never been high and I've never been drunk. And I'm an atheist. I'm not going to piss pound you with Jesus. And what I say to these inmates sometimes is like, you got kids? You got a wife? I'm like, look at what you're doing to yourself. You're here, and yeah, you're having fun playing cribbage and shit and hanging out, but you'd rather be with your kids. You're not going to get that time back.
No.
This is like almost a similar speech I had to use on
The Beast.
multiple times. I'm like, the juice is getting older, and you keep drinking and driving, and you haven't gotten caught, and you haven't, thankfully, hit anybody else or killed anybody else.
Right.
But if you do, you go in the clink, and time doesn't fucking stop with our daughter. And this is back when it was just the three of us.
Sure.
You're going to miss out on these very formative years of her life, and she's going to remember that shit, that you were in jail or prison for substance abuse. And it might help her stay clean, but you're never going to get that time back.
No,
so to tell these people, you're not going to get these years with your kids back. There was a chick who came in for like her third stint in 2.5 years for getting caught with meth. And she had this moment of clarity. I'm being very facetious there. She's like, when I get out of here, I'm just going to be all about my kid. And I want to be like, you're supposed to be about your kid, you stupid bitch.
Right.
And maybe I'm a little insensitive, but you need someone who's not going to go, it's okay, you can get better. You know, maybe you just haven't found the right services to convince you. I'm not going to go the bleeding heart liberal angle. That's fucking ridiculous.
Right.
Sometimes you got to kind of snap into reality.
Well, and you got to admit, different things will work for different people. You know what I mean? Obviously, these people didn't care enough about their kids or their other things before, and now that they've gotten in trouble and they've had a chance to sober up, now they see what they're doing to their life. But the problem is when they're in the grips of that addiction, they don't care about anything else but the addiction.
The worst ones are the ones that are young and have no kids and no wife or
because
husband.
They have nothing to get clean for, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Like there was this guy that was in there.
They won't do it for themselves.
And he talked about joining ISIS. He's like, I heard that if you join ISIS, if you come from America to join ISIS, they'll give you $100,000 and a brick of your favorite drug. He's like, I'll fucking go over there and join ISIS for a brick of meth. And I said, okay, I want you to consider this. You're white and from America, and when you get there, if they don't cut your head off immediately,
right,
they're going to rape you repeatedly and then cut your head off. There's no $100,000 pot of magic and brick of love. Well, it's ISIS, motherfucker.
Well, right. And are they just going to let you sit around and smoke and snort that brick of meth? No. They're going to expect you to go blow yourself up, strap on a vest, and go to a marketplace in Iraq.
So, I mean, his addiction got so bad that at one point he said the words, I can't even pass the treatment program. I might as well just go live under a bridge and suck dick for meth. And I went, wow, that right there might be rock bottom and a bounce.
And the fact that that's even a plausible option?
He's laying that out there on the table like, I'm going to go fucking be homeless and sleep under a bridge and suck dick for meth. First off, that's idiotic. And second off, are there that many people that are willing to just give you drugs for a blowjob from a guy who's a junkie?
Right.
Like, I like getting blown as much as the next guy, but I'm not going to be like, oh, are you hungry? Yeah, here, suck my cock and you can have this Subway sandwich.
Right.
It's a pretty easy deal because you don't have to talk to him after dinner. But still, the types of people that would go down on you for food or for drugs are not the kind of people whose mouths you want your wiener in.
That's kind of the point I was going to make. Like, really, would you want them anywhere near your genitals?
Yeah, so he got caught doing drugs and he tried to, fake a UA.
Oh.
I had to give him a UA.
Yep.
And he was standing there and he was, shaking. Like he was shaking his dick to get it started.
Okay.
And then he was kind of wiggling back and forth. Like, okay, clearly this is not your pee. Because he hands me the cup and I put a glove. I'm like, my finger's in your pee. It's ice cold almost. This is old pee. So, and then we found that he had a shampoo bottle in his pants. He threw away the lid to it, the little twisty top, in the garbage in the bathroom that I took him to.
Oh,
so we had him
he left
dead to
evidence
rights.
in there, yeah.
We got him out of there, and he went to a more secure facility that housed a lot of federal inmates.
Oh, that must have been fun for him.
I don't really care. But if anybody's going to die of an overdose, I'm expecting to read his name in the papers, and I haven't yet.
That's pretty sad. So you don't have the UA cups that actually have that little thermometer strip on the side?
They do.
Oh, they do.
That's how I knew, is it wasn't even registering 92 degrees. I'm like, watch me put my finger in this. And I don't think any other staff there has done this. They're probably like, it's somebody's pee, you put your finger in it. I have a glove on.
Well, right. And you're kind of betting on the fact that it's not actually urine.
I don't care. I've done it before when I've thought people are using other people's urine. I just put my finger, I glove up and I put a finger there. I'm like, this pee's cold. It ain't your pee. So cut the horse shit. I'm not falling for this. You think it's my first lap around the track? I have done thousands of UAs. Thousands. So,
Are they still as exciting as the first time?
No. No, they're not. They're very simple. I take them in there. I tell them I want half a cup, then cap it, hand it back to me. If you're having trouble going, remember not to push. Pushing makes your body want to poop. And you should breathe deep and relax to unclench the muscles around your bladder.
Do you suggest to them to catch it midstream?
No.
Okay.
No. I don't get that in depth. I tell them how to make it come out, how they get it in the cup. I'm like, make sure you get it in the cup, not on the cup.
Right. That's the thing is for medical samples and things like that, you're supposed to do it like midstream. You're supposed to start peeing and then catch it with the cup, but then you pee all over the cup.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
That's kind of gross.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what I should do is try to get a job at like Quest Diagnostics.
There you go.
Like, dude, I've done thousands of UAs in the last decade. If anybody knows. This guy.
Right.
Maybe I get like a sweet Monday to Thursday, 10-hour a day, 3 days off every week gig. I'm daydreaming. That would be fucking awesome. That would be fucking awesome. I didn't think about that until we just said that just now.
Yeah, there you go.
Maybe I should start looking
Options.
for a job with a Whiz Quiz affiliate.
Well, don't we know somebody who used to work with
JC used to sell stuff
Med
for
Talks,
them.
right?
Yeah, Med Talks.
Yeah.
So as of now, I'm not an addiction recovery support specialist for the state.
Bummer.
Maybe I need
Maybe
to
you need to
inquire
go and get a
about
habit.
the discriminate. Oh yeah, I was going to say inquire about the discrimination angle, but maybe I need to get out there and start playing some vein darts. Find out what real heroin's all about. No.
Do you sometimes feel irritable, restless, uneasy, sad, normal, or just plain not high? Maybe it's time to try crack.
Well, could you? I mean, I know this isn't truly ethical, but couldn't you have technically lied about your past experiences? Kind of built up that part of the resume a little bit?
I don't like doing that because I use this line in interviews. I'm like, in case you're wondering if I'm trying to talk myself up, that's not the kind of guy I am.
Mm-hmm.
Employment is a relationship. Relationships are built on trust. And if I'm lying to you right out of the gate, then I'm not going to be worth my salt once you hire me. So that's why I'm laying it out there for you now saying, I'm a straight shooter and I'm your guy. What you're going to get is what I'm laying out right now.
And they still didn't hire you.
People, yeah. Fuckers. It might have been something else I said. I don't know.
Yeah.
A few of those jobs were cop jobs, and I got passed over for people that were already cops in other municipalities. So that kind of doesn't count. But just to review.
The Beast?
Back to drinking.
Oh, that's
She's not started smoking weed yet again because her probation's not up till the middle of the month.
Oh, so she can't pass a UA.
Right.
That's why.
Lover boy got a DUI a few weeks back.
Oh, man.
Yeah. I think it's his third.
Oh. Wow.
Right.
Especially within 10 years, that's going to be super duper penalties.
You know, I dated this other chick years ago who was a waitress. And part of why we broke up is because she would come home from work every night and pound down a sixer of Newcastle and then pass out, hog the covers, and sleep for 12 hours.
Right, because she went into a mini coma.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And then if you remember the chick from Menards that I dated after I worked there.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, she had meth habits before, as did the Beast back in the day. But the chick I'm talking about, I'm going to do an entire episode of Blumpkin and Friends devoted to 2 appearances on IT Radio years ago.
Okay.
I'm going to take them and piece them together. It's when I first started seeing her and months after I stopped seeing her. But had been to prison for hitting somebody with a car on purpose.
Oh. And you still decided to date her?
Something about a chick that had been divorced 3 times, had kids that were 14 and 8, had been to prison for trying to hit somebody or with hitting somebody with a car, and also violated their parole for trying to hit somebody over the head with a bottle, and also had a booze and a meth habit, and had been molested as a child and a teenager. That didn't scare me away.
You couldn't get enough, huh?
I was thinking to myself, somebody's got to give her a chance, right? What if she's a really good person and she's just had a really fucked up life, and she meets the right person, and then she wasn't still doing meth.
I could understand that argument if there was maybe only 1 or 2 of those bullet points, but I mean, you just rattled off a whole list of things that should have been like warning lights, bells, whistles going off.
It was funny to me. I'm like, wow, this is a lot. Okay.
I'm guessing the bedtime practices were pretty amazing then, too.
Oh, God, did she fuck my brains out.
Yeah.
The first chick I ever put in handcuffs.
Really?
Yeah. This is when I was
and
a
we're
cop.
not talking like fuzzy little handcuffs?
No, I put her in those handcuffs that are right up there hanging. And then I put on my cop uniform shirt and then did her that way.
And she loved it, huh?
She fucking loved it. What a completely inappropriate way to wrap up this episode that was been mostly serious.
A little bit of brevity at the end.
But I have experience with people doing drugs, but I apparently can't tell people how to not do drugs. Take that, self-esteem.
Just a little added thing here on the end of it. I've done my fair share of drugs and drinking over the years. But I still wouldn't be so presumptuous to tell people, unless I see them really destroying their life, I wouldn't assume that my word would be any better than anybody else's to tell them to not do drugs.
You never know. You just got to say, you got to be a salesman. And that's what I did, is I was a salesman for 10 years.
Yeah.
I guess it's not enough. Interact with the show on Twitter at What Do We Call It? That is at What Do We Call It? You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/group/What Do We Call It Podcast Show. You're listening to us on YouTube, so like and subscribe. For the What Do We Call It podcast, I'm Jmann.
I'm Neil.
And that's the end.